Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. In today's lesson, we're going to look at how to migrate on-prem resources to AWS. So for the first part, we're going to look at how to establish a secure connection between AWS and on-prem data center. And we don't want to go through the public internet. So this will be a diagram we're going to follow for today's lesson. So I'm going to use Terraform to create the VPC, the subnet, and also the S3 bucket. So my Terraform configuration file is in the main.tf. So this is my Terraform configuration file. So I specify my AWS provider, and I already configured Terraform CLI to talk to AWS API using AWS configure. So I have my credentials provided already. Now here I created my VPC with a CIDR block. Now I'm not going to go into networking here, but what this means is that if I want my subnet to be under the same VPC, it means that I can change the last two numbers here for my subnet so that my subnet will be under the same VPC. I also have internet gateway to route traffic to the internet created. I also create a route table for my subnet so that subnet will route traffic to the internet gateway to the public internet. So here, that's a route table association. So that's a way of saying that, hey, route table and subnet come together, right? Putting them together. I also have a code to create S3 bucket because files will be copied into the S3 bucket. And I also have security groups created here for the OpenVPN server. All right, so let's go ahead and run our Terraform configuration file. So we have Terraform init. So this is going to download the provider. So this is going to go ahead and download the AWS provider. Then I'll do Terraform plan to see what will be created. All right, so this is the output of the Terraform plan. It's going to show us what will be created if we run Terraform apply. So let's go ahead and run Terraform apply. So it's creating our resources in Terraform. It's going to create our VPC, the S3 bucket, the subnet, and the route tables in AWS. It's gonna take about a minute to finish. Now all the resources have been created. You have 8 resources have been added. Let's go to the UI. Back here, I'm going to reload the page. So now if I go to my VPC, you can see that a new VPC has been created. Let's click on that. Now the resource map, you can see that there's one subnet has been created here. This subnet with a route table which route traffic through the internet gateway to the public internet. So that's my VPC. You also see our CIDR block here. So now the next thing that we're going to do is to provision OpenVPN server. So I'm going to go to the marketplace, and I'm going to use AMI from AWS Marketplace. So go to discovery. So we could have spin on an EC2 instance and also install the OpenVPN on it. But just to save ourselves some time, I'm going to use OpenVPN AMI on the marketplace. But loading, so we're going to move ahead, continue to configuration. So this page, I'm going to select my region. I'm working with US West 1, so I'm going to select that. I think that's the only thing we need to select on this page. Let's move on to next page. So on here, so I'm going to leave T2 small, and then for, let me see, for my VPC, I want to make sure I'm using the VPC we just created. Let me see here, launch from EC2. Okay, let me select this. Okay, so I'll give it a name, OpenVPN. OpenVPN server. The AMI is already selected. I'm leaving it the default here for that. I'm going to select a key, so I already created a key. So here, I want to make sure my VPC is selected here for the VPC. I have only one subnet in that VPC, so that has been populated here. I also have a security group, so I'm going to select my security group. I'll leave the rest of the settings default, and then I'll click on launch. So now we have launched our EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and click on this. It might take a couple of minutes. So it is initializing. It might take a minute to be ready. So as we wait, so right now, if you check what's my IP, so it's showing my current IP, it's showing my location, it's showing my network provider. So after we establish this connection, I'll be on AWS network. So we'll come back and check once we finish the connection. So let's reload. All right. So see, EC2 instance is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to it. So I'll leave this as a root, and then I'll click on connect. So it's going to, we are going to go through the initializing stage. So I'll click on yes to answer the first question. So I'll click on yes for the second question. So I'll leave this as a default. I also leave this as a default port in our TCP. So I say yes, I want traffic to be routed by default through the VPN. So I'll say yes for this one. I'm gonna say yes. I'll say yes. Default is yes, so I'm going to leave that. It's asking me to generate a password, so I'm going to enter my password at this point. Then it will ask me to confirm my password. So then you have to go through the initializing stage. Right, so now the initializing is done, so we can view the UI to see. I'll close this marketplace, close that. Close that one too. Right, let me paste that in here. I'll go to advanced and then VPN, and then the password will be the password we just set. So this is the admin UI. A couple of things we need to do here. So I'll come to user management, and then under user permissions, I'll add a new user here. Let's say test. I want to assign auto login for that user, and then I also want to add a password for the user. So I'll go ahead, save the settings. It's taking a second to load. Okay, so now let's click on update running servers. So this is the new user we just created. Regression here. So we have to install the OpenVPN client, and that's what we are going to install on my local computer for my on-prem. So let's go ahead and do that now. So sudo apt install OpenVPN. Okay, so the OpenVPN CLI client is installed. We'll go ahead and run the command to start the client. All right, we see that this is completed. So let's go back to the UI, and let's go back to the admin UI. Let's reload this page. Okay, so now we can see that now the test user is connected to OpenVPN. Now let's go back and check. So currently, this was my IP address, this was my location, this was my network provider before we did the connection. So let's go ahead and reload this page again. All right, so now we can see that my IP address has changed, my location has changed, right? And now my service provider is AWS. So now we have successfully connected our local network to AWS network. That way we can safely transfer our data from our on-prem server to AWS without going through the public internet, so that we can have